there, listener. Welcome to the Deep Share Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Rouse, and for the last couple of decades, I've slowly been opening my eyes to a very different world than the one I grew up hearing about. And the more conversations I have with interesting people, the more mystifying this world becomes. So without further ado, let's get deep.
We've got science to celebrate! Demons list out! After what, baby? Come on!
There is rebellion in the wind. It will be crushed.
Everything I've said is true. It's real.
Dinosaur fossils? God put those here to test our faith.
A damn lie. I saw them with my own eye.
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
We did illusions, man. None of it is true.
I'm not insane.
This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion.
And this is The Witness, and we're going to be talking ET encounters mostly tonight, but of course that's going to branch off into some of our favorite topics like psychedelics and paranormal experiences. So I'd like to introduce my amazing group here today. I have Dave and Camden from Generation Zed. How you guys doing?
Great. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah. I am
to have
sorry.
you here.
I'm distracted. I'm making sure audio is working because we might be streaming, but I mean, they can hear us.
Oh, man. Well, that wouldn't be good.
I know.
But we have author Lester Velez. Lester, how you doing, man?
Good. Great to be here.
Great to have you, man. Bruce, welcome back. Bruce Fenton's here.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Pleasure.
Brandon from Expanding Reality. How's it going, dude?
And every day above ground's a great day. Just happy to be here. Thank you for the invite, guys. I'm really looking forward to this. A fan's all yours, so thank you. This is cool.
Oh yeah, we have returning for the second part of The Witness, Chaz of the Dead. How's it going, man?
It's going good. I'm so glad to be back again and part of this this series because it's a cool one, and I'm ready to get weird.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. We are exploring consciousness and the weird synchronicities between all these different paths that the human brain, the human body, we all take to come to a lot of the same threads, the same place in this realm that we're in, I guess you could say. And I wanted to focus on alien encounters, and I actually think it's important to focus on these types of experiences that kind of transcend the physical plane in a lot of ways and go into that deeper rooted self. And we have a lot of experiences to talk about today, I think. And Bruce, of course, I think a lot of your writing and your research goes back to your original experiences with these kinds of topics. And I'd love for you to kick us off with a little bit of your history. And because we didn't get to the last roundtable we had, we didn't really get into any of your history on my podcast because you came in a little bit late that day and we just jumped into how bullshit the government disclosure was at the time. Yeah. But, let's get more into your story because that's what ties you into all of this.
Sure. Yeah. I see as well that just quickly that the government have got, was it the 6th official disclosure office going now, isn't it? The UFO. they keep rolling out these official UFO projects. Right. My background, I got into ancient mysteries, paranormal, all of those things when I was about 11 or 12. Very quickly, it was through a set of mystery cards, these collectible little cards, and each one had something like the pyramids, Loch Ness Monster. It's just this wacky little book. You stick these stickers in. And that really got me into it. It was just this idea. There were so many crazy things that people hadn't resolved. It sort of spiraled from there. And as everyone knows here, once you start any of these mysteries, they interconnect. You end up being dragged further and further down the rabbit hole. But I do remember, instances of alien-related type phenomena when I was quite young. Like I had a series of profoundly, real seeming dreams, of being on a table with beings around it. I mean, not classical greys, but, very strange humanoid beings, kind of repeating nightmare, which now in that context, I could look back and say, yeah, sort of like the alien abduction phenomena. I can't say if I was physically taken by beings, but and then later on, probably in my early teens, I remember having a kind of, especially what people call like a download, like suddenly having some information that that one day, and it was really weird, one day that I would be asking people if they wanted to go on a spaceship, and that they wouldn't believe me, and that I would go on this spaceship. It was just this weird kind of like, like knowing something. I'm not going to say again, I can't tell you that's really going to happen, but that was another early experience I had. So there's definitely been connections with that. And then, of course, my work's spiraled on towards more deeply looking into aliens in the last decade. But yeah, so there was definitely some early influences that have nudged me towards these topics.
Mm-hmm. And it does feel like it's connected to a lot of the paranormal that I've heard from Chaz as well. And Chaz, you've run into a lot of these experiences, and you've been trying to connect the ideas as well, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely I kind of got thrown into UFO investigating, which I think happens to quite a few people if you look at the history. But I was definitely investigating the paranormal more as kind of as a hobby, and doing some kind of weird experiments, looking for ghosts and that kind of stuff. But it was one of these weird experiments involving a Ouija board and some magic mushrooms that led to me seeing some UFOs. And that kind of blew it open for me, the idea that the paranormal, it's not just ghosts and Bigfoot and aliens. There's something in between. There's a thread in between all three of these. Something's happening that's allowing these weird encounters to occur, and that whatever facilitates them, it's the same, facilitator for all of these weird encounters. And through my research, I've been investigating how altering brain chemistry, to put it one way, can lead to these kinds of encounters. And it's definitely something that it gets weird, because I think most people these days have kind of already gotten their minds around the idea of, aliens from another planet. But when you start telling them that about trans-dimensional psychedelic, it sounds crazy. It's a crazy kind of thing to talk about. But the more you go into this research and the more interactions you have with it, the more these trends keep popping up.
Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. And Lester, your work also deals with people's experiences and with the ET encounters, correct? And and connecting them to paranormal entities and stuff.
Well, yeah, it's interesting when Bruce kicked this off. He talked about having an experience when he was 11 years old, and I had an experience also at 11 years old when I saw this object hovering over a tree line silently, and scared the crap out of me. And I ran in the house to try to get my father to come out. And by the time he did come out, it was gone. And he said, "Well, it's just a beacon of light reflecting off a cloud." Well, I didn't buy that, and decided to start reading books about UFOs. And back in those days, those ancient days, George Adamski was the big player, talking about the Venusians and all his trips to, Venus and things of that nature. Well, I really got into it, but as you grow up, you kind of fade away, and girls become more interesting, instead of UFOs. And anyway, make a long story short, I went off to college and was in the military for a while. And when I came out, I got a job and was working for a while, and then decided to move from Connecticut, where I was born, out to California in 1985. And I picked up the Mercury News, and Stanton Friedman was going to talk about UFOs and the government cover-up. Well, all of a sudden, it was like somebody threw a switch, and I said, "Oh my God, I got to go see this guy." And went to San Jose City College, and I expected to see just a handful of people, and the place was packed. And so I came out of there saying, "Oh man, how do I get more involved?" Well, MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, had a table out in the foyer, and they produce a monthly journal. And so I decided, well, I'm going to get the journal. Well, after a while, that wasn't enough for me, and I decided to become a field investigator. They have a field investigator training course that they have. So I did that. And this is when it really got interesting, because most of the cases, almost actually without exception, not only were sightings that these people were having, but they turned out to be abduction type cases. And then these people were asking me, did I know of other people that were having similar circumstances in their lives? And I said, yes, I do. And next thing I'm doing, I'm facilitating a support group in San Jose. And that's when things, got super interesting, because the stories that these people told, were incredible. And, back in those days, my window of believability might have been about that big, but after a while, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and to understand what was going on. And so, it's an incredible phenomenon. These people do not have a psychopathology. They're very sane people. I mean, they have good, most of them have really good jobs. They're policemen, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're firemen, you name it, across the whole spectrum and across the whole world. This is happening. It's not just here in the United States. Anyway, getting involved with that really opened up my realm of believability as far as possible things. And so being part of MUFON at that time, which was basically a nuts and bolts type organization, they weren't concerned about the abduction phenomena. And I went to the international director at the time, was James Carrion, and suggested that, you're missing out on a lot of information by not helping or working with these abductees. And so the next thing we set up was to have all the calls coming in to MUFON regarding abductions came to me out in San Jose. And that part of that was the fact that in 1994, based on an event that happened with a woman in Carmel, I founded OPUS, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, and with a doctor friend of mine. And our mission basically is to help people having paranormal experiences. And what we do is we have a resource of hypnotherapists, medical people, mental health practitioners, and also we have an online support group, which this has proved to be the best thing that we could have set up, because these people can, talk 24/7. It's totally confidential. You have to hit our website, opusnetwork.org, and there's a section for support, and you fill out this little form, real simple thing, and it comes to me or one of the other people that do the triage, and then we find out what they want. A lot of times they want to be put into the support group, the online support group, but they need to know they're not alone. And we have people from all over the world, literally from Australia, South America, South Africa, even Iran. We got one from Iran, believe it or not. So anyway, I don't want to take up more time, but I got a lot more stuff to talk about.
Absolutely. Now, in this work, are you seeing of specific threads or trends in the stories that are coming back, like very specific, is there an overwhelming case, or is it very random and very unique case by case?
There seems to be a real pattern with these abductions. The Greys seem to be the star performers. I was talking to a colleague of mine the other day about it, and he says, yeah, it's like all these different entities, because you have reptoids, and then you have mantis type people, and then you got the Nordics. They all seem to use these Greys. It's almost like you go to a store and buy an iPhone, you can get yourself a Grey. And so, so that's a big common factor. and
So
and, and
bizarre.
and so yeah, and then people being brought on board a craft, or even backing up, going through walls, through their house, and
Mhm.
up in a beam of light, and then being put on a table, a metal table, and then various procedures being done. Whether it's taking semen or eggs, or if it's taking blood, and it's yeah. But even though there may be a lot of commonalities, each story is different from that perspective, from that person's perspective. What it means to them.
Mr. Velez, if I may ask very quickly, the Greys, is there a consistency amongst the description of them? Because there seem to be various multitudes of, I guess if you want to call subspecies, some with much taller and thinner, some much shorter, some with wider heads, going horizontally, some more vertical. Is there a consistency in the description that at least the reports you've...
Yeah, there are many types of quote unquote grays, because they're not only gray, they're brown. They can be blue.
Right.
They can be the short grays. And then you have the tall grays. But there's a relatively common, like in Whitley Strieber's case, they were short blue with the, square heads, and squatty faces and everything.
Right.
Yeah, but again, looking at most of the cases that we've dealt with, the typical gray, that kind of pear-shaped head with the slanty eyes, large black eyes, too small nose, very small lips, type of thing, ear holes maybe, and it's it's very, very common.
That seems to be like, maybe it's some kind of archetype, that face, that the slanted eyes and the small mouth, some kind of ink blot that's etched into our minds at this point so much. I'm loosely connecting this to like the fact that machine elves from the DMT experience seem to vary depending on who sees them. Everybody describes it differently, but are you guys familiar with that experience?
Well, yeah. To me, it's kind of always played into a perception. Pop culture has these grays all over the place in movies and things, and so kind of as you perceive or think they could look, they end up you know what I mean? Like how you are wanting them to look, kind of a belief.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is I think through my research, the abduction experience in particular is probably the strongest reason I think that something stranger than physical reality is occurring. I mean, I actually have a list of how the abduction phenomenon and the UFO phenomenon in general mirrors psychedelic phenomena.
Yeah. Love to see it.
So it's in the book.
It is.
If anyone
which is right here.
Yeah,
plugs at the end, but it's in there. But it's impossible physics. One, right? These craft, and when you're on these ships, you enter a small ship and it's much larger on the inside. One of the most common things. Again, this happens a ton on psychedelics. I mean, the Alice in Wonderland effect, I felt that on mushrooms, where you feel like you're shrinking and everything else is getting bigger. Missing time, that's another one common in psychedelics. I thought I was doing something for 20 minutes and it's been 6 hours and I was just drawing a picture, and again, this missing time is not just in abduction scenarios. I mean, that's where we hear it most often, but in demonic encounters, poltergeist cases, Bigfoot cases, people seem to be losing hours after interacting with these entities. Personality changes, and this was the biggest one for me with the abduction phenomenon, because you do have these two kind of schools of thought in abductees themselves. And there's this one group who thinks it's all love and light, and that they're despite the violations and things, the taking of biological materials, that they're being enhanced, they're being elevated. And if you take some psychedelics, that's the feeling you get. You're really, That's how
Yeah.
it feels. Ask anyone who's done DMT; they'll describe that feeling to you. And then on the flip side, you have some people who have been abducted who describe it as the most terrifying thing ever, which is also a group of people who can't handle psychedelics and also have the worst time imaginable on them, where these bad trips often involve entities that do horrible things. From sexual things to physical things. And again, it's the same kind of duality reaction to being abducted occurs.
One of the things that you hit on is the fact that you have two groups: the people that feel positive and the people that feel negative about this situation. Well, we've done a couple of studies. The Free Organization did one, of course, a huge one, and then we did one back in 2007 called the Omega-3 study, where we took 71 people that were experiencers and then 51 people that were a control group. And what you find is that, generally speaking, the initial phase of any abduction is scary as hell to all people. No matter who you are, it really is a shocking, stressful event. Then, depending upon how many more abductions occur, you find that as you go past 10 abductions, all of a sudden the attitude starts to change. And we found that like 80% of the people, after a while find that, it's a great thing, and all the information that they're downloaded, present some really positive things that you need to be better to a fellow man. You need to be better to the planet. You gotta, so it's all positive type things. But there's that 20% that have continued to have bad experiences, and I think it's just like we have here on Earth. We got good people and we got bad people, and we got some nasty asses up there, and we got some really good ones up there. And so if you're unlucky to deal with that, and so we have to help these people get out of that situation and stop these abductions. And so,
Mr. Velez, if I may ask, do you find in your cases over the many, many years that there seems to be this notion that there's a sort of a tribalistic faction within the UFO community. One, I guess you could say, group is saying that, only the human looking ones present, the great experiences when abducted, whereas others say that's not necessarily true. What have you found to be the case? Have there been praying mantis look types, for example, in positive experiences, or not so much?
No, absolutely. It's the latter of what you just said. You can have a good praying mantis, and a lot of them come across that way. There seems to be like this thing. Okay, so you have the small gray. He's some biological robotic combination automaton thing, and then you have the tall gray, which seems to be less of an automaton and maybe somewhat controlling of the small gray, and then you've got the mantid, who's in control over the whole scenario, and they seem to exude a more loving type of energy as opposed to a negative type of energy. And so,
it's going to just probably follow on. Sorry, very quickly for what you said, Les, about the idea there's like an iPhone, these small grays. It just really. I could just imagine somewhere out there's like a store, where there's a reptilian in there, and there's a tall grey, and they're like, super like greys. I want them in brown with the big eyes, and another like, I don't want the same, we have them in like blue or something.
3 jars of human cum. So
you just imagine it's somewhere out there, and it's like the Apple iStore sort of thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like Build-A-Bear.
Well, what it makes me think of, interestingly, is this abduction phenomena is kind of like recent in the grand scheme of history, because you can find stories from Civil War experiencers where they saw these things, but no one got abducted. You can turn to the Bible. Moses followed a ball of fire through the desert at night and a giant cloud during the day. You could equate those to UFO crafts people see now. So UFOs and these things have kind of always maybe been here, but you don't hear about abductions in those historical Like
the only
stories.
thing I can, sorry, I don't mean to speak on.
Yeah,
I know there's others that know much better than I do on this. There have been some cases, just to play devil's advocate, where you say in the Bible, I think Ezekiel was riding the chariot of the gods, if you want to call it. I think we can. He was riding in the heavens, amongst the heavens. Sorry, in the gods' chariots. I presume that would be a craft. But anyway, sorry. Anyone else who?
There are other stories in the Bible of people going up into the heavens.
I guess, you would have to interpret
There's
it
a
that
great
way.
Jacques Vallée book, which I'm whiffing on the name of, but it's just 500 examples before like 1850 of UFOs in history. So it is something that's kind of persistent, but it does seem to evolve. And I think the little differences between the grays and even the big differences between insects and human beings. I think a lot of that can be attributed to the lens of the witness. Because there's plenty of cases where two people interact with a UFO, are taken aboard, and their reports are slightly different. Like the same, like it was a giant metal hook for one of them, and then it was a laser beam for the other. These tiny little differences seem to pop up. And again, it's similar to these things that happen when you're under intense psychedelic experiences. And again, that's not to say that I don't want to diminish any experience and say, oh well, it's all psychedelic, it's all in the person's head. It's clearly something physical is happening to these people. I mean, these are physical changes to not only personality, but people come back with implants and scars and bruising, rashes, eye burn. So at somewhere this psychedelic experience, if you will, if you're going from a staunch skeptical point of view, this hallucination becomes physical. And that's what the paranormal is, and what we're really trying to get to the core of. How does that happen?
And that's where I kind of wanted to steer it real quick, Brandon, I know I've heard you talk about this, about simulation theory a number of times, and I'm very interested in that concept because a lot of times it is used, I would say, the simulation theory is, at least in modern terms, is used in a way to once again explain away any phenomenal consciousness experience, that this is just a bunch of future humans running ancestral programs on computers. It's not a very creative concept in that sense. But if we look at it more as a naturally occurring system and not a human-made simulation, if it's just the simulation and it's part of nature, perhaps. That's kind of how I've been coming at simulation from my psychedelic experiences, mixing it with all these others. And we haven't heard from your perspective yet. And I wanted you to jump in and give us a little bit of this.
Absolutely. I think you're all right. I think everyone is correct in their assumptions. I think that what we're looking at is trying to figure everything out, but everyone's got like island of pieces of puzzle pieces, and so by putting them all together, that's a very important way to look at the phenomena. So the nuts and bolts stuff is interesting, and I think it's been important because some of those observations are valid. But I also think that whenever you turn to more of a psychosemantic type of phenomena, which even Vallée, gets there, Hynek got there with Sufos there towards the end of his life, and McKenna, of course, but I think Chaz was really onto it with the marrying of the psychedelic phenomena. That analogy is very apt. I think that's really, really close to the artifacts that they come back with after having this experience. The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbott. His section on great book, right?
Awesome book.
His section on stigmata is what I was thinking about whenever I was hearing that. And these things are manifested by the mind, but physically in the body. And so they're brown, hard spots, cuts that appear and disappear. I mean, this phenomena has been widely documented, and maybe it has something to do with religion, or maybe it just has to do with the power of the mind, right? Yeah. Which could be another artifact of this alien phenomena, whatever this thing is. Because the more I look at it as well, the more you kind of have to question the way you think reality works to sort of explain this to any level of degree, which I think changes all the time. After doing what I've been doing on my journey personally, and especially with the show, I have figured out that the only thing I'm 100% certain on is my uncertainty about every damn thing. Now, a lot of it, and you could see how that would be possibly a little jarring or a little unsettling, but honestly, it's the most freeing thing in the world, because I get to view my world differently depending on a new inspiration or thought or psychedelic experience. So I think that leaving things open as far as explaining them differently is into context of how reality may work for you at the moment. Because I've really gotten down this deep rabbit hole that it's so damn personal. And this does tie to the Matrix. I'll get there. With the simulation thing. But I just wanted to kind of bring in the question of the wholeness of reality, what you think this is. Like, is this a simulation? Then perhaps the UFO phenomena, Bigfoot, paranormal, any of it, which is still all connected, are just artifacts of this Matrix, of this reality, whatever this is. Perhaps they're here as agents of a higher dimensional plane that need to interact with a third dimension where we live now. And the way to do this is to dial their vibration down through automatons, through some sort of mechanistic, physical, tangible thing that has to be created coming from a vibrational density that's much different than ours. So all of these things need to be considered. I think you need to kind of figure out where you lie on that spectrum to then start explaining all these other things. Now, to what we can observe through the model of what's kind of accepted here, that we live on a ball, that we're spinning around the sun, stuff like that, then the nuts and bolts things don't even come close to explaining that, because the argument usually is, and we've all thought this through to the next level. So the argument usually is, well, how can they come from star systems that far? That would be too hard. Again, very limiting perspective, because we're anthropomorphizing our ability to reason those problems into the way that they would reason those problems. And so the answer would be then that it's not hard for them, right? That they can just do this to some level of whatever the hell they are. Now, the interdimensional thing kind of explains a lot. I think that would also explain time travel, like just going down it logically whenever you start thinking about these things. But to another level, it again depends on what you think this reality is. If you think that you're an infinite being that's having a physical experience here, and that we're all one, we're all the same thing, experiencing this, whatever we decided to create for ourselves subjectively, and that it's all just it's a ride, as Bill Hicks would put it, then that then differs from what you think the phenomena is. Maybe it's just an extra thing, maybe it's like, okay, yeah, we could eat apples and just hang out in the sun all day, or there's a big hairy man over there that just walked into the side of a mountain. Let's go figure out what that thing is. It's kind of exciting, right? It's kind of another feature of this reality to keep you exploring and questioning and keep you inquisitive, and living in the moment.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question at all.
Well, I think the thing that is interesting about this phenomena, is it extraterrestrial? Is it interdimensional? Is it time travel? Is it the military? It's all the above. It's anything you can think of, literally.
So
whatever.
One more, if I may, just one more thing to add to this would be the tulpa element, because this also calls into question about reality, right? If you believe in tulpas, or you think that thought forms can manifest in reality and then do physical things, we have small examples of this that you can see. I've used the example on the show before of Garfield, right? Garfield is not a real thing, but maybe you meet someone because they're wearing a Garfield t-shirt out in public somewhere, and then you love Garfield and you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then you guys get married, fall in love, get married, have kids. The bond over something that's not real, Garfield in this instance, is has very real impacts in this reality. Now, to the thought form tulpa part of this, and this tied back to what we were talking about earlier, is that maybe these things are created by us, or they're created by stories. They're created by somebody seeing a face that looks like a gray millions of years ago in a cloud, telling everyone what that looked like, passing that image down. And then that's how we get that. And that's just something that's ingrained in our DNA from storytelling time and from tribal days of us passing down this thing that somebody saw that then they created in reality, which has physical effects on us to this day. We don't know. I mean, these types of questions, though, have to be also considered whenever you talk about the phenomena that I think is all.
This is off of a cave artwork that was found in the Franco-Iberian area. It was like Neanderthal man was drawing these flying saucers. So I mean, this goes back eons, probably ever since, we crawled out of the muck and mire of the beginning here on Earth.
Yeah, Bruce, I'd like to get your understanding on that specific part of it. The how old this phenomenon might be, at least from the ET encounter perspective, and what they may have left behind, and if they were here from another galaxy or if it was interdimensional. I mean, you've had physical evidence and a whole story about that to weave into this too.
Yeah, I mean, there's two different threads there. I mean, on the one side, I was going to say I'd bring up shamanism because, of course, I mean, we can't detach that from what we are discussing here, because we know that in the shamanic traditions, people have voyaged into other realms where they have seen a lot of the same beings, but and also other beings, and had very similar experiences to the abductees. They're taken up, they're taken into the sky worlds. Often they're given implants, they are modified in some way, they are given powers. Often the clever fellas, the shamans, the priests, are people who were taken up and had crystals put in them, like implants and stuff. Right? So there's a really deep tradition there. And we know that this sort of what we call shamanic practices, they go back at least 70,000 years. With the earliest evidence is there's a cave in South Africa with a kind of snake-like rock feature, which was, there's evidence it was used as a kind of metaphysical complex of some sort. So that seems to be the earliest signs of a kind of a spiritual shamanic practice that we can find. So 70,000 years at least of us journeying and believing in spirits and all the rest of it. So there's a good chance that this phenomena has been manifesting, I would say, for at least back to the roots of that. But they asked the question, when could humans conceptualize these things as well? And I think that, again, we're probably looking somewhere around the time of the behavioral revolution, which again is around that 70,000 years ago, because prior to that, we didn't really seem to be able to come up with really like figurative art, language. We don't think we had before that, not in the sense that we have now, again, because we have changes in the brain that occur around about then, which allow us to think in terms of events that will happen elsewhere in time and space, which we take for granted now. But once upon a time, we didn't have the section of the brain, the frontal cortex, that allows you to say, okay, tomorrow you and Bob will go down to the river and get a fish. That just would not have been possible. You could have just, pointed like, fish, now eat it. So, it would just be what's immediate. But now we can plan and strategize. That comes about with a change in how the brain functions and with a new structure in the brain. So I don't think that we could have necessarily come up with these as ideas, certainly before that. So if they were already in consciousness, they must be from some kind of direct experiences, because I don't think we could have really, we didn't have that kind of thinking where you could come up with these kind of wacky ideas before you had these brain structures and this ability to conceptualize, the art and stuff that we can do now. You just couldn't have. It was all just representative, right? You'd see, people would draw a buffalo to draw a buffalo, or the squiggles, which they think were probably from some kind of, again, maybe some of the altered state experiences or from dreams. But you didn't really have the kind of the, painting scenes and really expressing an inner self. So I suspect that, probably the phenomena may be older than that. But I don't know that we could really have conjured it up. So if it's already impacting us before 70,000 years ago, I don't think it's come out of us. I think there must be something influencing us, and that this is then we've had the ability to then share it since then. I mean, obviously, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The other thing I was going to say quickly as well on that, just that when we get that ability, and this is kind of interesting because there's a hard barrier, right? Because it turns out that I can't remember the exact term, but to be able to have this ability to conceptualize in that way and to have language which you can use to kind of plan events in that way, right? You have to have been exposed to that form of language within the first 3 or 4 years of your life, okay? And that brain structure will not function otherwise. We know this with feral children and stuff, right? But that brain structure as well, you require it, and it will not function without that exposure. So you've got two things that kind of emerge at once: the brain structure, exposure to this language and this thinking that allows you to be the way we are, right? But that's a hard problem, because that means it emerged in somebody. They had nobody else around them that they were exposed to that could think like that or speak like that. So this couldn't have happened. And like the scientists have written about it, said, well, we have this hard problem because how were those children or that child, exposed? Because if there's nobody else that could do this before them,
right?
So then who is there? Who is there? That begs the question, right? Who is teaching these kids, right?
Yes.
Who, and where does this brain change come from? Is it really just incidental, or has somebody modified the brain and then taught us this kind of thinking and language?
Hey, Andy, I was wondering, after Brandon goes, if I could ask Bruce a quick question.
Oh, by all means, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So,
I want to let everyone know quickly, we not only have the CIA in our chat, but also the MI6.
Awesome.
So
good.
Go ahead and call Mossad.
Bad time.
I wanted to make sure we got all the branches in there,
Yeah, good. So I was just going to mention the food of the gods element to that, to where, being introduced to psilocybin mushrooms at a certain point in early hominid history did double that may explain the doubling of the brain. And that can happen very, very quickly. Another thing to that would be the 100th monkey effect. So you wouldn't necessarily, by that observation, which science has done in a few different cases, doesn't necessarily need contact to be able to influence the minds of similar species across large distances. So these things pop up in ideas that occur on different spots of the world at different times that were seemingly disconnected. Another thing to think about is whenever we think about our ancient past and how far we think that number goes back, there's been many traditions back that have talked about the earth being destroyed and started over many times. There's Michael Cremo, the forbidden archaeologist work that goes back to 200 million years where human settlements and evidence of human stone tools and things were found. Couple of things. Depends on how out of the box you want to take it. But time travel, we can't roll that shit out. There might be time travelers that came back and then influenced their past hominids, which then creates their future, which is this great paradox thing that they have to do that to then make themselves occur, right? Possible. Or it's leftover artifacts from a civilization that was destroyed, seemingly, maybe left. The Pleiadians, they talk about this happening too. Also a secret space program, when you talk about the airships of the late 1800s with Delshau's work, there's a lot of things that point to that there's maybe some parallel human species or some type that have occurred, exploded, and then gone off planet, that then to come back and kind of revisit their ancient ancestors, which would be us, their dumb brother and sister or whatever. These are all possible things too. So it, again, just kind of depends on your paradigm, like where you fall on the spectrum of what's possible in this reality, right?
Right. So I think the big core of this, back to the shamanism and kind of simulation theory and all of that, the big takeaway from both psychedelic experiences and paranormal experiences is that information, I don't even like to call it entities, because that personifies it. We're already making our own mistake again.
We're already
information can exist non-physically.
Yeah.
And now we can debate on if that's in some kind of shared unconscious or
0 point field
spirit. Yeah. There's a lot of different thoughts on that. But the takeaway from these encounters is that this information exists without us. Again, and you can see that in psychedelics. People talk to entities all the time. You see that in poltergeist cases. The most severe poltergeists, they like to gossip about the neighbors.
I'm so sorry. That's hilarious.
Severe poltergeists, they like to gossip about neighbors. They tell about hidden treasure. Aliens too. They have these messages about disasters and all these things. The flip coin of that is, from all those examples, we know one thing for sure about this disincarnate information. It also lies. It lies a lot. A lot of that information is shit. It's not worth anything. Then there's instances where it's accurate, where you were able to, the ghost tells you its name and birth date, and someone pulls it up and there it is, or someone remembers a past life where they were murdered and they're able to solve the crime because of it. These bizarre, these high strangeness examples are out there. And even a more common example of xenoglossy, where, someone gets hit in the head and they can speak in like 16th century French. Yeah. And this is something that's recorded in medical books over and over again. It's something that happens, not all the time, but it happens. And it's something where, how did they get this information? And so it was somewhere, and they got it, their brain picked it up from somewhere. I guess the end bit of that point is I want to plug the idea of biocentrism, which is kind of marrying the idea of biology to the simulation theory, that our reality is a hallucination brought on by our own mind. We're the generator of
I like that.
the matrix. It's not a big machine we're plugged into. We're the machine creating it before our eyes. And there's a book, Biocentrism. It gets very sciencey, but I think it's Dr. Robert Lanza, who's a neurosurgeon. And this is kind of his pioneering little theory. And it works in a lot of weird ways, and it definitely does. And if you look at it in this avenue of strange research. So just something to chew on, to look up after the show. Homework.
Well, it immediately takes, Dave, I know you wanted to ask a question just real quick. It reminds me of As Above, So Below. Inside and outside, it's like you hear a lot in the spiritual traditions that it's like the external world is a reflection of the internal world and things like that. So Dave, you wanted to ask a question?
Thank you. Yeah,
Massad's
Bruce.
joined now. Someone is having fun.
What's that? Massad's in here now?
Now Mossad, KGB, CIA, MI6. Someone is having fun.
Dude, screenshot it. Screenshot it.
Yeah.
Oh man.
We got to report it to the FBI.
That's great.
Yeah, and they won't do anything anyway. So
or the ATF.
Yeah.
Someone just made like 4 accounts all at once and it's talking to themselves.
When PETA shows up, let me know.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing I wanted to ask Bruce specifically, sir, is there, I think when you came on the show a few months, 2-3 months back, I did ask this, but more specifically now, is there a certain point in time, regardless of where geographically in the world, but where you or some of your colleagues that have taken on the task of trying to figure out some sort of dissonance, between there being, an evolutionary biology within humanoids and, the Denisovans and things like this, is there a certain point in time in which there is a clear gap and the public institutions of academia, whether it's, in the UK in Oxford or in the US, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, refuse to acknowledge and look into it?
Just to find, when you say a clear gap, what do you mean by that?
For example, let's say there's a point in time when there's I guess we could say a void in which does not seem to understand the expansion of, say, the skull in a physical sense, physical components. Just not saying that's a fact, but just as an example.
Sure. Yeah, the nearest to that is the period I tackle, which is around 800,000 years ago, because for many years we knew from the fossil record that around 800,000 years ago there's a rapid acceleration in cranial capacity, and that was unexplained, and that's basically remained kind of unexplained. But what has changed is we now have genetic data that, because we didn't have before, and it turns out that there's a number of radical changes in the genome that occur, which particularly impact the brain, and some of them would impact brain size. So you can easily infer that these are happening at the same time. Genetic changes are a bit harder to get precise dating on, so you might get a range, like they'll say 700 to 900,000 years ago or something. But so we know these are happening around that time because we can see the changes in the cranial capacity, right? But there's some very strange modifications, I'd say. But they've got the chromosome 2 fusion that occurs around that point. We know that it occurs around then because, first of all, you've got, now that we have the genomes of the Neanderthals and the Denisovans, we find that the chromosome 2 fusion is also in those lineages, right? So we know that it has to have occurred before the split. The split is now dated to around about 600 to 800,000 years ago. Some say a little bit more. So around in that period again, we are starting to diverge from each other, right? So we know it's happened before that. And then there was a British biologist.
Has this happened in a way that when you look at it from a relative to the rest of human evolution, it happened way too quick or way too anomalistically, if you want to call it?
Yeah, there's several anomalies to that fusion. Look, you can have fusion events today. Sometimes people have the chromosomal errors, right? But those are generally really problematic, right? Really problematic. Those people typically can't procreate if they do survive, and they have severe problems. And also, if they did somehow procreate, that anomaly will be lost in the reproduction, right? It's removed. So you don't get a continuous lineages of people with a new amount of chromosomes or a change in the chromosomes. But what you see that with that chromosomal fusion is a total replacement. All the other primates have 48 chromosomes. We have 46. It's believed all the other hominins had 48. We have 46, right? So you've got to think all of the hominins on Earth with 48 chromosomes are replaced. They're completely replaced, right? So that is anomalous. And then when they look closer, they said the only way that we can explain this is there's three characteristics it infers. First of all, that it must have happened in more than one person. And bear in mind, this is supposed to be a random, sporadic kind of mutation, because for it to become fixed into the population, you need at least 2 or 3, 4 people, a few people that have got this, and they have to be in the same area. They have to be able to interbreed, right? On top of that, you need to have profound beneficial traits that come with this, that make it so advantageous that it will persist, right? And then the third thing is they infer that this must be happening in a small, isolated community. Now, that's kind of mad stuff in itself. When you think about that, that's also all of the definitions of a lab, right? Of a lab experiment, that you are creating several entities, several beings at the same time with the same change, that the change is profound, impacts the brain particularly, and then, gives them these abilities that will mean that they can outcompete every other human on the planet, right? And that they're in a lab somewhere in an isolated community, breeding with each other, and then are released, right? Because that's right. So that's a very strange thing to have happened. And this is, recognized as a very, and if you look at creationists, if you look at the creationist scientists, they spend a lot of time on chromosome 2, because for the similar reasons that they can see that this is a profoundly strange event, which they infer is the, almost God coming into the game and changing, saying, look, humans are not like the other primates. I'm making them special and other by these changes, right? So that is such a profound change that they massively focus on chromosome 2.
Is there any public explanation within the STEM community, like with putting aside, I'm talking about the ones that say, out there, the biologists and all that say, this whole thing of aliens is nonsense in our history and all that. What's their explanation, if there is one?
Really, no, it's still a point of contention. You can't really just explain it away. Again, as we say, you've got to somehow take a leap there and say that suddenly a group of people have this strange and at the fusion site, you've got deletions and additions, which again is a bit odd, and the fusing of the chromosomes are on an active gene, which is to do with reproduction, the immune system, the brain, key areas you might want to get at. And so there's another anomalies around the fusion itself. But it's not alone. I mean, there's other genetic changes that occur in close proximity, like a gene that appears, they described as appearing fully formed from junk DNA, and it's one of our crucial brain genes, right? Just appears fully formed out of junk DNA. Another one that it appears to be a fragment of a larger gene sequence that looks like it's been snipped, copied, and added in. I mean, that's stuff we're doing, right? So when you start looking at these things around, not just the chromosome 2, but some of these other genes that have profound influences to the neocortex and to brain size, they are also anomalous. And we know that the skull, capacity goes into overdrive at this point. And you've got this total replacement starts, that these people are going out competing all the other hominids. So you've got a series of really strange things going on, right? All in kind of succession. So no, there's not a good explanation. A lot of it we put down to like random mutations, or maybe there was, some kind of an ecological event, maybe that we started cooking and maybe, meat was helping our brain growth. And so they throw lots of, thoughts at this, but there is no good explanation that just tackles this.
Gary Nolan at Stanford University, was looking at this same topic, and he believed that in order evolution has a natural process. You have these genes and chromosomes changing, and it takes a certain amount of time. I forget the number. It could be millions of years. I think it's 6 million years for all these things to process. And what he posited was the fact that in order for that to happen, where we are now, based on where we were, the Earth has to be a lot older than what we claim it is. Instead of being 4.13 billion years old, it has to be 9 billion years old. And so that's a fascinating fact in and of itself. So if that's not the case, and the Earth is only 4.13 billion years old, then somebody has been mucking around with our genes.
Yeah, I've seen some reference to, I think in a documentary he was interviewed for, where it basically kind of suggests that our DNA evolutionary history goes back to, as you say, older than the Earth. So where was that DNA before the Earth? So then you're in a problem, aren't you? That again, which backs up the other idea that of panspermia, exogenesis, that our DNA is older than the Earth because it was brought here, right? And then that infers a whole other series of problems, that if it was brought here, where are the beings? Have they just left us here? Are they been interacting? And then, you're opening up that whole box that, if they've always been here, why wouldn't they still be here? And then UFOs, alien encounters, abductions.
Would you want to be here?
Probably zoom off and leave it for a while.
Yeah, forget it.
Well, I wanted to talk about that idea of the DNA coming here or being some form of eternal information, bringing it back to Chaz saying how information can be non-physical. And it does seem like whether it's a psychedelic DMT experience or an alien encounter or paranormal or a near-death experience, it all seems to have this deep, deep knowing, this ultimate truth, this same, demystification of everything that we all wonder as in normal human life. You come back, it's an ecstatic situation in your life, and it changes everything. It completely spins you on your head, and it's weird to think that, just because they're from another planet or something, they automatically have this deep wisdom to give. Why, you know what I mean? Perhaps it just comes with our evolution. Is it just being here long enough to figure it out? And maybe from our perspective right now in the world, it's like a bad way of thinking that, the mysteries of the universe, they can never be completely figured out. Maybe, do you guys think it's a matter of time where this deep information that comes from these experiences can be just broadly understood at will through writing or word of mouth or something? Or do you think it will always remain, stillness and silence and wordless and nameless?
My quick opinion, I think there's been a massive distortion of consciousness amongst the population of this planet. But again, that might be a bit of an overgeneralization, but there's been some type of distortion of some kind, similar to how when you put a bunch of radios in a room, for example, and you're all trying to get, every radio tuned to the same station. And some radios, you can hear the song playing on that particular station perfectly. Others, for some reason, just the make or the model of that radio, it just doesn't suit it. I think personally, there's been some type of mass distortion, using some type of technology, apparatus, you name it, that has created the suppression amongst many other things, whether it's spiritual, esoteric, physical, you name it. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, my 2 cents is the fact I don't know if we'll ever fully understand this, at least maybe not in this particular lifetime. Maybe, you hear stories about like this doctor recently that was on a kayaking trip down in South America and went over a falls and was underwater for 30 minutes and was in touch with these entities. And she felt this great amount of love and she wanted to go with them. And they said, no, you have to go back. You have things that you need to do. And then they also told her that her son, when he would turn 18, would perish. And so she went away from this experience. Of course, she never told her son, who was small at the time, and forgot about the whole thing. And sure enough, when he turned 18, he got into a car crash and died. What the hell is that? What the hell is being psychic? You have psychics that can tune in not only to the past or the present, but at the future as to what's going on.
Right. And is that and I believe you're speaking about Dr. Mary Helen Hensley.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And I love that you brought her up, because she will be joining us on another episode of this Witness series for the near-death experience focus.
Oh, fantastic.
So I can't wait to hear from her. But it does seem to be connected to psychic phenomenon and magic. It's all the same field, of course. Mm-hmm. I think we're starting to broadly accept that on some level, but it does seem like there's this line of infinite information, this deep rooted truth that's in there that's almost unspeakable, and you can't remember it very well when you come back. Like I remember we brought up McKenna. McKenna has a great way of describing it, where it's like, it's the most amazing thing. It's the most amazing thing. It's, what am I talking about? And it's gone.
Yeah. That's the problem. I think that's the issue. I would say that it's not that we can't understand everything. It's that I don't think that we can whilst we're in this body. I think that once you are out of this body and you expand, as in NDE, and anyone who stays in a fair amount of time in an NDE type scenario, you expand and you begin to know like everything, start to know an enormous amount about the universe, the workings of things. I just don't think we can know it in this body, that the brain limits is a like a step down transformer for consciousness and for awareness. So I don't believe it's possible for a human being to know everything. I might be wrong, but I just don't think it fits in human form. But then once you come out of that form, I think you have the potential to maybe know everything about everything. And I don't know if you will, but I think you have the potential there.
Well, perhaps, do we have room for more conscious evolution? I'm thinking of the song 46 and 2 by Tool, if anyone's familiar, because that song is like about our next step. It's about the mythical Christ consciousness that supposedly we can ascend to. And I wonder, not to go down any negative paths here, but I love talking about the mimicry that the parasites love to put on everything. And we've all talked about this together, most of us. And is transhumanism maybe trying to take away from that next natural step that we could take? Is that the false one,
I've always personally found the idea of the Pokemon evolution next step kind of a cheesy one. I think it's something that gets lost. It's different among different cultures. The idea of Christ consciousness to Nirvana to any of these claimed states. It's pretty subjective. And I think there's some interesting fear mongering for the transhumanism stuff that definitely needs to be, looked at and considered. But I think the problem at the human puzzle is that we can't take ourselves out of the puzzle. And that's why we can't understand these things. It's because we're limited by our human computer.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily, I think, raising, vibrations or anything like that. It's about getting a new observation, a new way to look at what reality is, and from there you can go and tinker with it.
Are you sorry, Chaz, are you implying that in the sense that once the perspective broadens or alters or both, I guess you could say that, when you refer to vibrations, not necessarily about it being an ascension, if you will, would you say that sort of falls into line when the perspective broadens and or shifts? Or
right, I'd say I think it's more of a grander understanding.
Right,
it's not
right.
We're all turning into Superman and flying around. It's
Right.
like when the Greeks discovered the earth was round, and that just all, science changed, and they were like, okay, well, now you can do this, and that's how you navigate. And it was just kind of a grander understanding, and anyone who went to school kind of knew about it and was in the know. And then, of course, there's the idea now that there's some people who are in the know. Right. There's a lot of people who are selling you the fact that they're in the know. Stephen Greer might be one of those people.
Oh, yeah.
But come for me on Twitter. But they
let's not hurt his feelings. He tears up easily, but only if it's on camera.
Oh yes, of course.
But I think being able to look at it from a non-human perspective, and this is already in play. This is how we discover this. It is the field of quantum physics. We wouldn't be able to do these experiments on particles without computers because we physically can't process it. These particles don't exist until humans look at them. And,
exactly.
That was a huge, massive step into understanding that, and we still don't understand it. Even the people researching it can't physically wrap their minds around it.
It's a paradox. Yeah.
Right. But through more, that's just the first experiment. Through more experiments is how you build the knowledge. That's how you do it. So I think there's a truth and an absolute reality to non-physical information. And I think there's a lot of good evidence to say when we die, we become non-physical information. For that, something's going on there. Somehow we go on to interact with that field of existence. But to understand that, and to understand this, and below it and above it, and so on and so forth, we need this. We can't do it yet without help.
You're referring to interfacing with consciousness, if you, in a certain regard. Am I
right? Yeah. Some people call it the collective subconscious, right?
Zero point field, I think.
Exactly. And again, we have all of these examples where information does seem to exist without a creature behind it.
Yeah.
So I think that's these examples are particularly important when examining any of these stories. But again, I think the concept of the trickster is really important as well.
Right. Yes.
Because I love the stories. The most intriguing stories are the ones where, like said earlier, where they predict the death of a family member and it happens and stuff. But there's also a dozen stories for every one of those where they said, "Oh, go out to the woods at midnight and dig a giant hole and lay down naked, and they'll take you up to the sky. Trust me, I'm telling you, I'm the Bigfoot in your brain, and I'm telling you this is what you have to do." And it's it's nonsense. There's plenty of pastors who fall for it under the name of, whatever deity. And they say, "Jesus told me the world's ended on this day. Everyone sell your stuff and I promise you." And I really do think some of them, I'm not going to give them that much credit, but a couple of them actually believe they're being tricked by this non-physical information. And again,
oh dude, yeah, I've said it before on this podcast that my my deepest psychedelic experience made me realize that my ego, or whatever that is, my inner child, I guess, had been running a conspiracy on me the whole time, like hiding things and confusing me and keeping me in my own little protective spaces and things like that, as each and every one of us probably has. And it's like our own trickster in our own individual consciousness. It's almost again like that as above, so below concept.
That's one of the core issues of this, and even of doing any scientific experiment, is how do you take that? How do I know this information's actually disincarnate information and not just my subconscious? Because we all know what our subconsciouses can do. We all have dreams. We all get crazy symbolism. And of course, those dreams are a perfect example of where disincarnate information can come through. I mean, I think I read somewhere statistically, even if precognition doesn't exist, everyone would still have about 2 or 3 precognitive dreams throughout their lives. Like, it's definitely a thing. And that's the scientific explanation, but it happens, and that information somehow gets picked up. But you also, dream about your English teacher in roller skates, snorkeling in a hot tub. It's also this weird other information that's also somewhere in your physical mind and your memories. So to finding that line of what's legitimate and what isn't is it's why there's a million gotcha psychic shows, because sometimes that information isn't right.
The gatekeepers in some cases.
And a million other stories it is right. The psychic found the lost child, all those kind of stories. They're all out there. So it's a difficult thing to interpret.
Hell yeah. This is really going well.
The internet's beautiful. We've got Majestic 12, FBI, CIA, KGB, Mossad, MI6. No one gets, Joe Rogan doesn't get this many intelligence agencies in his chat. Yeah, we're great.
Well, no, they get it privately emailed to them.
Oh, okay, yeah. They get notes beforehand, right.
I was going to very quickly, if it's right, I was going to just quickly from the transhumanism element there. And just say that, one of the things that stands out to me is, that because if you look at all the descriptions of what can be done and where it's going, brain implants and enhancing your lifespan, and eventually maybe, merging with the AI and uploading to the cloud, all of this stuff. And that, we're told that we'd be able to perhaps upload to robots that can go out into space and explore and live forever. But then nobody seems to talk much about happiness, joy, or why you'd want to do this stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's like, where is the happiness in that? Where's the joy? If me in my robotic form, flying through the void for eternity, like computing to myself. And
I
stuff
know,
like,
it's pretty fun in
why
Halo.
it's kind of like a bad trip that you just can't.
Cool.
You wish you hadn't took it. Do you know what I mean? I wish I hadn't ate that extra mushroom, and you're just trapped. And you're trapped in this metal cube flying through space forever, thinking, why did I do that? And I just don't see the joy in it. All the things that that made your life worth living are gone, right?
Exactly.
You're just existing in that space.
They're removing the body.
What for?
They're trying to remove it.
Of course.
But you got to ask them, what do they see any happiness in doing? Or is it just doing it because you can? And what is the actual? What's the benefit? What's the real benefit to you?
Does anyone here see a benefit in transhumanism if we were to say remove those at the top of the elite power structures of the world and change the agenda? Does anyone see a benefit to that? Or
I would say a big benefit, and I think that's part of what again, I don't want to stick to the negative here, but that is part of their game plan, clearly, to make people distrust science entirely, which has happened. They're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which is terrifying, I think. It's not good. But of course, we have to get particular with that and, do our research and find out who's being paid by who and all that. But
don't get me wrong.
Science,
Yes,
in general, should be still trusted.
Right. So I just wanted to say the morals and ethics of it. Just because you replace the group at the, or the groups at the top right now with a new group, of course, there's the whole concept of oversight and all that. But just as a general question, because we see some cases where again, I don't want to say this as if it's fact, but seemingly some of these more positively oriented, at least towards us, the way that we perceive it, extraterrestrials or interdimensional beings seem to have some type of, again, I guess how we would perceive it as mechanical apparatus in an extremely advanced way that benefits them, and yet these are still beings that seem to emit very positive emotions. Presuming this is it's not a deception, but there seems to be a balance of sorts in a certain regard. I mean, for example, very quickly, when you take a look at some ancient stories of certain civilizations having I guess you could say Tartaria being one of them, allegedly 0 point energy, but again, the same concepts of that of CPUs and computers that we know today are not existent in that form at the time. It's 0 point energy to benefit the whole of those existing, and it stops at that. They still excel in their technological advancements, but they don't disseminate it to the public immediately. And I'm not saying to keep it secret, it's just more so they put it aside and they understood. Some of these civilizations seem to have understood that it's only what's needed. And it's, again, to go to another planet, by all means, to put stuff in our bodies to make us live longer biologically, sure. But it seems like some of these ancient civilizations seem to have known the limit, where to stop. But I could be wrong.
Yes. Well,
I think we're again limited by our own selves in that capacity. I think that this kind of fear of a Jeff Bezos robo god of destruction is, I fear it too. It's a good fear to have, and we should watchdog it. We're still missing in our science a huge leap before anything like that's even feasible. We're still in this idea that we can continue crossing wires forever, and eventually we'll get a brain that thinks like us. And that's we're missing so many steps, in between there, before we can even entertain the idea. I mean, I would love to watch them try. It's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of dead interns at Elon Musk's, Robo Labs or whatever, but there's this fundamental misunderstanding. And again, it's through these outlier cases, through the paranormal, where you find, clues to possibly solving that answer. And again, just like any other field, I think introducing, the computing power with its statistics and abilities more focused on the paranormal, you're going to get some results there. And I think there are people onto it. I think Robert Bigelow, when he bought that Skinwalker Ranch, was trying to do something like that. Again, who knows what most of the results are.
I just wanted to super quick. I think Robert Bigelow, and I'm just curious to get everyone's opinion. If you guys, just a simple yes or no. Robert Bigelow to me is a perfect example of someone, the odd person who literally had the cash to burn. He's a perfect example of when you have hundreds of millions to blow, you could find out the truth, and you can find out the truth by realizing that the people surrounding you in your search for the truth or for UFOs and what you name it are disinformation agents. And again, you see his, allegedly his, institution of his aerospace company partnering with NASA. I think that's a perfect example of, if you literally have hundreds of millions to blow, literally, you can find the truth, but you will be silenced. But you see what I'm saying? I don't know if you guys agree with me or not. Again, this is presuming you have the cash to blow,
And he did,
Yeah, we definitely haven't shared the truth, has he? So if he found the truth with his money, he hasn't come public with it, and most of his files have remained private.
Well,
so,
this is the question: do we believe him? Like when he went on 60 Minutes and he goes when he said something along the lines of, don't quote me specifically, but he inferred and also said it's right under our noses. He goes,
They're here.
Yeah, right under our noses, and he goes, when you realize what I found that I can't say, it's like, my God, they're literally right here.
So I do have what I affectionately call B theory. It is my B theory, but it's spelled BEE. And it is this idea, this human-based explanation for the phenomenon. Sorry for this little tangent, but that's weird. Okay. This is one of the weirdest high strangeness kind of stories I've ever come across. So I was in Morocco like 6 or 7 years ago traveling, and I met this dude who said he was the son of a CIA agent. And short story, he showed me some evidence that kind of confirmed it. I can't say hand to God that he was a son of a CIA agent, but I saw some weird shit. Okay. And he told me that UFOs were based off of the thorax of honeybees, which is the craziest thing I've ever heard. And he said there was an anti-gravity chamber in there and that they reverse engineered it, and that's what pilots a UFO. Years later, I was doing a podcast, and a guy on that podcast said he'd read that little anecdote in my book and said, no way. Because a guy told me on his deathbed that bees were what was behind UFOs, and he wouldn't elaborate anymore. So we had two shadowy people saying bees were behind UFOs.
So what
the
about
final
the extinction of bees then? Are there?
It's a psyop. It's a psyop.
Okay.
Maybe it's all the governments rushing to collect bees so they can get their own UFOs.
They have your number, Chaz. They know,
I know
all about you.
If I get whacked,
let's give them the B theory.
I swear, if I get whacked, it's B theory.
Guys, Chaz, I wanted to thank you for that, because if I could very quickly, Andy, if it's cool with you, there's a quote from Colonel Philip Corso I just wanted to read that I think.
By all means.
Thank you.
Corso was deep in.
Right. He says, and I quote, "There's an old story I once heard about keeping secrets. A group of men were trying to protect their deeper secrets from the masses. They took their secrets and hid them in a shack whose very location was a secret. But the secret location was soon discovered, and it was discovered the secrets that the group was hiding. But before every secret could be revealed, the men quickly built a second shack where they stored those secrets they still kept to themselves. Soon, the second shack was discovered, and the group realized they would have to give up some secrets to protect the rest. So they again moved quickly to build a third shack and protect whatever secrets they could. This process repeated itself over and over until anyone wanting to find out what the secrets were had to start at the first shack and work their way from shack to shack until they came to where they could go no further because they didn't know the location of the next shack. For 50 years, this has been the very process by which the secrets of Roswell were protected by various special incarnations of an ad hoc confederation of top secret working groups throughout different branches of the government and private industry, and is still going on today." End quote.
My God, that was awesome. I had never read that before.
Brilliant.
You brought up Roswell. You brought up Roswell. I just saw an article, and I tell you, it was well written about the fact that Einstein actually went out to see the craft. I don't know if you guys saw that recently.
Yes. Apparently, he was of the he allegedly he filled in the holes because according to Ben Rich, former head of Lockheed Martin Skunk Works division, he had said in the latter part of his life a handful of quotes that have yet to be debunked, if you will. But he had said that Einstein figured out his own essentially missing equations, but again, totally off the record. The public still believes he died with not fully understanding the theory of relativity that he so founded and curated, discovered, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, absolutely, yeah.
One other thing, I had lunch with Lou Elizondo just before COVID shut everything down, and we were talking about these Tic Tacs, and what he told me was quite amazing. And at the time, he said, "Well, this is kind of hush hush," but the fact that we understand how these things operate. And so that was quite a revelation, and evidently it's an interaction with the skin and how the skin of the craft is made up. And he says you don't need a huge power source. You need a very small one, and it's not element 115. This has nothing to do with it.
So that's crazy because the kicker of B.
Just really quickly, do you think, in your opinion, sir, he was referring to there being? Because I've been told off the record, not by people such as Lou and at that high level, but I've been told off the record there are various forms of propulsion, like various forms that can access the anti-gravity apparatus.
Yeah, he was specifically talking about the Tic Tac. So,
okay.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Chaz. The kicker of B theory was that I found through research a Russian scientist who was an entomologist. He was a bug scientist who apparently wrote in like a one chapter in his autobiography memoir about how he discovered the anti-gravity capabilities of exoskeletons in certain insects. And he had stitched a bunch of these exoskeletons that would float together into blocks. And he supposedly had this platform that would levitate. And there's some experiments using this stuff that make things float in a weird way. There's a bunch of examples of it on YouTube. And he supposedly reported that flying this craft, if he ever dropped something off of it, it would like disappear and like reappear in someone's, like embedded in someone's window. He would take larval insects with him from his research zone, put them in his pocket, fly on this thing, and they'd be in their final stages of life in the test tube. It had all of these weird effects, and specifically where he landed and operated this craft, that effect would hang around for days, poltergeists and all this weird stuff. And on his first test run, he noted that when he flew around the university he worked at, the next day there were all these UFO reports. But they didn't report a little man on a platform. They reported these glowing yellow discs, 3 glowing yellow discs, even though he was one person. But they perfectly tracked his pattern. So according to him, though, he wasn't the only UFO thing in the news. So he thought that, someone else had discovered this as well. Yeah. So, I'm not going to share this. I don't want to get in trouble. I live in Russia. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. And he put the project away. And, this weird kind of human explanation that, it kind of explains all the weird psychedelic stuff. Just being around these craft apparently has that effect. Maybe Robert Bigelow just was operating a Skinwalker. That was just the landing zone for his UFO, and he wanted to see how people would interact with the so-called paranormal after effects.
Right.
Makes some sense, doesn't it? It's like an unreality drive,
where
these things go. They destabilize reality, and you get all these other things, Yeti turning up, and
exactly. And this is what this Russian bug scientist, who has no interaction with the paranormal phenomenon, this one-off kind of thing written in his journal, was like, this is what I've discovered. I'm pretty sure that's what UFOs are. And I had 2 weird sources that kind of corroborated that. And if Lou Elizondo is being entirely truthful, then perhaps, yeah, it's as simple as lining these craft with chitin, the exoskeletons of certain insects. You just slap them up there, and then it's really easy to float it.
Well, it's also
just throw a Hemi in it, you're good.
Well, Linda Howe, came up with this metamaterial that was a very interesting combination of materials and how it was put together, which, at the time, we can't figure out how to actually produce it. But so something like that, as far as an exoskeleton for a craft, an interaction with the power source is something that supposedly that's what Lou was talking about at the time. One other thing you mentioned, the Skinwalker Ranch, real quick. I had two remote viewers look at it, and they both came up with literally the same thing, that there's a source deep under that ranch that is active and supposedly with aliens. So
or perhaps it's just the human craft bending reality. B theory. It's just
another.
It's the second. It's B theory.
Let me take this B theory somewhere here for a second, because.
Sorry, Andrew. Before, if I could, one thing just to add to what Mr. Velez said. Have any of you?
Call me Les. Call me Les.
Les. Sorry, Les. Sorry. There is from some of my research has found that there's very peculiar ionized air pockets that are in amongst certain, I don't want to say Skinwalker Ranch, but near the areas where allegedly some of these, not just deep underground military bases are, but these mountain bases for some of these aliens, for where they store their craft. Some ex-military whistleblowers, if you want to call it, have off the record claimed that they've witnessed firsthand when working in these black projects, some of them working with these beings, and they would telepathically ask the beings what they were doing, and they would say, we're creating ionized air pockets for a multitude of reasons.
No, I've never heard that one. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, there is some actual real hard science behind that. When you like a church steeple or a pyramid, or ionized layers can't go around things. They have to couple up and go over. So when you have a pyramid like that, it literally bundles all the ionized layers at the very top of it. So there's thoughts that things like churches, the pyramids, there was an ancient kind of esoteric technology to them. Whereas now we've lost that technology. We don't have access to it. Are they putting stuff in our water, our food? We have been hampered, or people don't like it, but we have been retarded. We have been slowed down of our natural, actual, maybe biological abilities. And we have this fake technology now.
Yes,
we have
that
technology.
mimicry.
It's very interesting.
Just very quickly on bees, just the side thing from that was that it's interesting that in several different suspected, UFO or flying saucer type crashes, the material found is the honeycomb material. I know that in our own, I know that in our own space program and aerospace program we use honeycomb materials, but it is kind of funny that these supposed alien craft of debris is honeycomb. It does make, I thought in the past, is it because they're insectoids and that they prefer that? It's kind of strange.
That actually, I didn't want to get into any of the too sciencey stuff, but that actually plays right into what Gurbinikov, this Russian scientist, wrote. He had discovered this thing called the CSE, the cavity structure effect. And basically, it's anytime you honeycomb a bunch of material, even if it's just like a bundle of plastic straws gripped together, it creates a unique electromagnetic field. For whatever reason, it scrambles it in a weird way. And there's all these experiments. You can put like a matchstick in a closed jar and then do the bunched straws and it'll spin the matchstick. And there's hundreds of examples of this. And supposedly medical applications, it kind of gets into like some weird, orgone energy. It's very adjacent to some of these other weird theories of energy. But it was based on specifically these cavity structures. That's absolutely one of the core connections in that.
I've seen some of his videos, by the way, about the Beatles' wings doing the anti-gravity.
Quick little thing just to throw in there very quickly. Camden and myself a handful of days ago discovered on the dark web. Now, granted, keep in mind, we haven't ascertained the veracity of it, so it's up for speculation, but allegedly a piece of footage, maybe about 25, 30 seconds long of, it seemed to have been filmed back in the 80s on a structure outside on the backside of Mars. When I say backside, I'm saying relative to the position of where we are on Earth. And the structures were honeycomb structures. So
Wow.
I just find,
Again,
I just wanted to throw that in
every
there.
time I talk about this theory, it's like the most, and the reason I like to bring it up, it brings up the most synchronicities. Every time someone's like, yeah, actually that's weird you say that, but yeah, I have a thing that kind of matches up.
Right.
It's one to consider.
When I heard the idea that it didn't have to take a lot of energy, like I've always I've heard this thing about bees that like they fly and it doesn't even make sense that they fly because of the sound, the vibration that they make with their thorax, I believe, right?
The current explanation there is that they use this unique whirlwind pattern. So the old adage is bees are too heavy to fly.
So
and
like a sacred, like a spiral.
And some MIT mathematician professors were doing the math one day, and they were like, "Oh yeah, bees are too heavy to fly." And so there's this idea that they somehow do this special whirl pattern that lets them fly. But there's still a mystery about one thing that the scientists call the bee's efficiency mode. So when bees are carrying pollen back to their nest, they are lighter than they are normally, even though they're carrying more weight. And scientists have no idea how this works or how this operates. They call it the bee's efficiency mode because it loads up a bunch of stuff. It should be twice its weight, but it's actually 0.1001 grams lighter or whatever it is. And it flies off and gets back to the nest and then goes out. And when it goes out, it's normal weight.
It's like putting everything into a zip file or something.
Yeah, it somehow lifts more than should be possible. And this is still
they're losing
a
weight
mystery in science today.
They're losing weight in the process. What a great way to lose weight.
So yeah, it's definitely
working hard.
Definitely a strange theory. And
also, go ahead, Chaz.
Full disclosure, I've run it through some other avenues for some people who work for some places, and they were like, "No, I've never heard of anything like that." So maybe it's a really well condensed secret. But there's some other information I've received that seems pretty legit from these people. So, it's a theory, and that's one of many. Again, I think from the overwhelming amount of evidence suggests something, more on the psychedelic, not these entities, the source of these craft being something non-human. I think there's a staunch amount of evidence, and that can't be discounted entirely. But I think the bee theory, there's part of me, humans are weird, and there's a lot of us. So that theory, when you do the statistics on it,
well, it made me think of the sound particularly, and I know this sounds kind of a reach perhaps, but whenever I think about in the beginning was the word, I always think of sound and frequency. And I don't know, what do you guys think about that from the religious perspective over to what it could be an allegory for? Who knows?
Super quickly, if I could just say, it's been said, again, this may be a little bit of a confined or limited perspective, if you will, but it's been said even amongst scientists in the public academia of STEM that we get some of our best tricks from nature. Right now, again, sort of referencing, going back, Chaz, to the whole bee honeycomb ideology there. It's interesting because if we get our best tricks from nature or the simulation or whatever we're living in, not just this planet, but you look at other planets and there's very interesting, quite ironic, I wouldn't say coincidental because of how often it shows up, but hexagons and honeycombs type structures being seen. It really makes you think ultimately, when you take a step back, if these beings at a much more advanced level are taking advantage of the, I guess you could say, sacred geometry of the simulation that we live in, at least relative to this dimension, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But again, I say that because we may be perceiving it in a very limited way. So I don't want to make it seem like it's as simple as that. But
it could be something even more simple. One thought I have entertaining this is it could be as simple as, if you think of humans and our architecture and our roots and our minds, our geology is mostly triangles. We build in triangles. Triangles are our strongest structure. It could be as simply the difference between us and them is their base unit of geometry is a hexagon.
Right.
And it's just they understand how that works, and so they understood this cavity structure effect as a law of nature, like we understand gravity as a law of nature. And their science has just been based around this. And both things can be true. They could be from a different world using the same, physical properties that we can find in our world in honeybees for some reason.
Right.
Yeah, I've been saying a lot that the strings are being pulled from outside of the theater, because a lot of times people get a little paranoid about seeing the hexagon everywhere and stuff like that and think it's all rigged for nefarious purposes. But then I don't know, man. It seems to be written right into nature already anyway, in the golden ratio and stuff like that. And if that's rigged, then it's the whole thing. And it really is like there's some sort of mechanism going on from outside of the spectrum that we're in or something like that. Brandon, you haven't jumped in a while. What do you got to say about all this?
I just think you guys are awesome, and that's great. Another hexagonal type structure that I hadn't heard mentioned yet is supposedly that storm on top of Saturn. That's been there for really long.
That's what I was thinking, man.
That's another weird one.
Yeah.
Or that
There's another synchronicity. There you go.
Yeah.
No, I dig it. I love this conversation. This has been one of the best one of these I've been a part of so far. So awesome job, guys.
Great.
You guys are just incredible to be able to share this time with. I love this. You guys are all amazing. That's honestly what I was just listening. I'm enjoying it.
If there is a sentient, purposive entity, consciousness out there controlling all of this, that the human body, it's got a lot of faults. They screwed up.
Oh yeah,
they screwed up. So I don't know. Maybe they're coming back to try to correct some of this that's been going on. Some of these abductions. I don't know if I'm sure you guys have heard about this. That the fact that people come back and they become healers. They have the healing ability. I've been healed personally from afar. I had
I have.
And then people are become empathic. And being able to really understand a person before they even open their mouth. These are incredible things.
And you hear that a lot from the near-death experience side as well, that people come back with a greater purpose that they were reminded of. In most cases, it's a reminding, not a learning. And that ties in
the shamanistic traditions. That's, there's usually a ritual for up and coming shamans. It's usually a heavy dose of something that puts you on the verge of death and puts you in an altered state. And again, people come back with this understanding and powers, for essentially the lack of a better word.
It's interesting to me what they've turned psychedelics into, a rave culture, go look at big flashing lights and loud noises at a festival, when they really are, traditionally very intrinsic, spiritually focused things to go do. So I guess that's where they tried to change it after the 60s, because they realized, a lot of people take acid and stuff, they actually will care.
Oh crap, they're taking off to India. Oh no.
Again, I think this is one we tend to put a malicious energy behind, because it feels malicious, the drugs being illegal and these kinds of things. But I think really what existed in the Americas before Europeans arrived was a science based around the use of these drugs. And just from reports of the conquistadors and of their own tribal legends, shamans were able to commune with animals, control them. Even from places in modern Africa, you have stories where local shamans are able to, one of my favorite ones is they're able to reroute ants, and they'll use it to, extort people. They'll be like, well, if you don't pay me, the ants will come back to your house. But there's these people, and these are accounts written in the 70s and the 80s of Europeans down there, and they're watching this dude who goes up and he stares at the ants, and this thick line of ants just turns around and climbs down the stairs, and it's just turning at the point where he looked. And so it seems that there was this understanding, and to some degree, maybe in some hidden schools there still is, of how to use these substances to interact with the non-physical information fields. And any kind of, I think, creature shares some kind of neural network.
Right.
Just living on Earth, we're all kind of, and that's the oneness you feel when you take psychedelics, or go on one of these abduction experiences, and often scenarios. So I think, the rave culture and these things are, it's like when you give a toddler an Uzi, it's not going to work out. He's just going to do whatever. He's going to wave it around, and it's going to be wild.
It's just the same old business of excess,
Right.
It's not about because McKenna always said, do it in silent darkness. And man, I did that one time. I just went in my closet with 5 grams of dried mushrooms, and I think my friend checked on me and I couldn't speak English to him. So I mean, that's where you go to do it. It's supposed to be an initiation for yourself. Of course, that word even gets a scary negative term in a lot of our community.
And I think it's really more important than ever now to have more people like Terrence McKenna who were able to do these experiments and kind of reverse engineer the science of using these substances, and that's what we need more of. And I think everyone worries about legalizing these substances and all the crazy partying that will happen, which is radical. I don't care about that. Cool, go for it. But I think the benefit far outweighs any of, there's people who abuse these substances.
Right.
There's people who abuse Oxycontin every day. There's people who use it as medicine.
Right.
That's going to be the dynamic always with substances. But to have people be able to research, I know just from my perspective, from my research, the amount of times where I'd be like, well, would be the perfect dosage, and if I could use this, that would be the one. And then, no, I can't do any of that, so I'll just use this, because I don't have the access. I can't do it in the most scientific way. So all of my experiments, to some extent, are crapshoots because I can't get it down. I try the best I can, but you can only do it so far. So I think it's an important.
You can't take yourself out of the puzzle, like you said. And it's interesting that you brought up that imagery, because there was one experience I had with, I believe it was LSD, and we were outside under a weeping willow tree, probably smoking a bowl or something like that. And suddenly we were all, it was a mutually shared experience that we all felt as though we were inside a 2D painting. And we were observing it as a part of it at the same time, and that was a very freaky situation.
If I could add quickly, this is what I was referring to when I said maybe about an hour ago, pertaining to the sort of distortion of consciousness, because you have these certain instances in which there seems to be a deep intrinsic connection from an esoteric spiritual level, and which could, I would presume, be able to be explained scientifically. It's just we're not privy to it publicly, but there seems to be these little fragments of deep connections and shared experiences, but it seems to just stay isolated with respects to that particular experience. And then, as you know, in your case, Andy, you go home, your pals go home, and it's never, we
left the painting. It was good.
Right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. But in the sense of once the drugs wear off and all that shared experience could not be obtained, I guess, without the psychedelics or without the drugs. And that's unfortunate, because that's the part I'm saying in which feels as though there's been a mass distortion or suppression.
Well, also, I just real quick to add to that is that, another reason why people, I think a better way to look at distrusting some psychedelic form is that, it's like taking a jetpack to the top of the summit of a mountain rather than climbing it, doing the work, and having all of the experiences that occur along the way that make you that efficient climber. Right. You know what I mean? And a lot of people do say you use the psychedelics as a tool, but then you can take without it. You can go to those places forevermore if you can train yourself. It's a door. It's a way to open yourself up. It's a jump pad, perhaps.
It's interesting that there's a kind of a common, what I was going to say, Western or modern world misconception with shamanism that most shamanism is to do with psychedelics, but in fact most shamanism has no use of psychedelics,
right?
Because instead you will use rhythmic dance, starvation, sound deprivation, darkness, drumming, and most of the time they're not using psychedelics to enter these spaces. And that's kind of so though I think because the world we are in, that it suits us in the disconnected and lacking maybe our traditions, that so we use them to get back into that world as a kind of not just blow the door off kind of thing. But they know how to knock on that door and have it open by many other ways without doing that. And I think that's kind of interesting. And also the other thing to say with that, when you said the connected experiences, which are really interesting, because if we look at this plant world, and obviously a lot of time you're entering via the plant world by taking these plants, but the plants are interconnected, and we now understand that the story of shamanism, that all the plants were like the forest was like a living entity, that all the plants communicated. And for a long time people BS, silly primitive people, but now we know that no, the roots are all interconnected, the mycelium are connected like a big brain, and that these plants are communicating. They're sending each other messages, they send chemicals. Like, hang on, so do animals do that? Do humans do that? Is there some level where we do? And we know in the psychedelics that say with, you touched on an event there, but I've had that with San Pedro particularly, where you enter a communal space, you're all in the same journey. You're seeing the same stuff, you're sensing the same stuff, you're there together. And it's like you reconnect that mycelium network between human beings, which seems to be part of what you're trying to disruption. I think what we've had disrupted is that interconnectedness of human beings.
Yes.
And that's allowed for things like the psychopaths and the world controllers who have taken over, because if they were interconnected in that way, you just couldn't end up with these kind of people. You couldn't end up with them, because apart from everything, you'd sense the disease.
You could nip it in the butt real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the trees sense that tree has a problem, or it's being attacked. They know all that straight away in the network, right? But we don't. And so these people can rise to a position of illness where they are now destroying our network. Right. And that's something unique to humans.
And they like to use the word unity lately. That's a big thing on there.
Right. I just want to say very quickly what you said there, Bruce. If that is not a metaphor for even those that do not subscribe to the esoteric aspect of things, if what you said there is not a metaphor that could be applied to life in general, with it, whether it's our political system, financial system, again, if, say, for example, 30-40 million people within the US or the UK woke up tomorrow morning and all of them drove over to the bank and said to their local bank, said, I want to liquidate everything, my assets, cancel my credit card, pull everything out in cash. You see how quickly the banks will cater to the people, because so many of them are requesting it in one shot. The one thing I wanted to add to that, to what you said, Bruce, was do not quote me specifically, but it's interesting we're even having this sort of conversation overall, because yesterday evening I was reading a handful of excerpts from Rudolf Steiner. Now, think of him what you will, but there was something in which he wrote, again, please don't, I don't want to butcher his quote, but he said something along the lines of, until the masses, and he's speaking of the people of the world, come to accept the reality that there are in fact interdimensional beings, good and bad, but that the negative ones feed off of the negative thoughts and negative, I guess you could say, presuppositions mentally, neurotically from humans in this dimension, we're never going to be able to fully get rid of the poltergeist phenomena, the different, very negatively oriented entitorial phenomenons, if you want to call it demonic, the whole thing. And one last thing very quickly, my audience will know I use this example quite a bit, but if you take an EMF device and you go to a mosque, a church, you name it, go to and literally put that device anywhere even remotely close to where there's maybe, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 people praying, if you want to call it, you see that thing spike. You'll see that thing just spike. And interestingly enough, there was an individual who took it to the Vatican many years ago. This was, I think, mid to late 80s. Just, Vatican, when people come outside to listen to the Pope speak or watch him speak, whatever, and then they do that moment of prayer. I don't believe it's so much the religious aspect of it. I believe it's the energy that is being focused towards a particular thought. That is what makes the EMF reader spike.
Like what Lynn McTaggart did, the intention, the power of eight.
Right. I think that's an important thing to hit on with that was touched earlier on, these traditions, most of them aren't psychedelic. And you can have these interactions. You can spur them on through meditation and things. It's what Stephen Greer sells for $5,000. But you can do it. You can do it in your backyard through simple.
He doesn't provide a chair. It says on it, "Bring your own chair."
And just to
anything
to continue that point real quick, and we brought up Lou Elizondo earlier, and nothing one way or the other about Lou, but he suggests that I think he made fun of CE5 at some point and said that he was just dropping signal flares out of planes or something like that. And to me, that throws the baby out with the bathwater, because I think the only reason why Stephen Greer is selling what he's selling is because, once again, they only sell what is appealing to us on a deep core. Because that deep core, we know that there is value in there somewhere. Perhaps it's being skewed or perpetuated in a.
I just wanted to. Yeah, sorry. I just want to say very quickly, because there's some people in the live stream chat for the last 2 hours that have been saying, when we would bring up Greer or what have you, they would say, "What's wrong with Greer?" This is more to the audience. For those watching live right now, I don't mean to speak on behalf of the other gentleman here, but. Personally, here's the thing. I believe his core message in a lot of ways is, aside from the tribalistic aspects of it, there's a lot of positive things that could be taken from it. I agree. Again, my disagreement is the amount of financial.
Yeah, the price tag's the issue.
That's my disagreement.
His personality rubs me the wrong way sometimes, but that's kind of a rude character assassination, honestly. I have done it a bunch to him in particular, because he makes so much money off of it, and it's a little disturbing how
for me, listen, to each their own. I think it's unfortunate to see people in the UFO community sort of taking sides. Again,
yes, I agree.
Like, how did the counterculture community fall for the two-party system?
I know.
Right.
It's not because the damn strings are being pulled from outside the theater. It's not some political system. It's like, it's fucking part.
It's like we have a duality concept stuck in our brain.
Well, again,
that serpent that eventually becomes the eagle. But
so essentially, though, me and Greer are arguing from the same point of view, that these entities, there's a non-physical psychedelic nature to these entities. Yes. I'll talk some smack.
My personal opinion about Greer, I have nothing. I just wanted to bring this up, Chaz, before you go on, just because I wanted to get your take on this sort of. This is my personal opinion about Greer. I have no evidence to back this up, but my personal thoughts regarding him is that he is, I guess you could say, indirectly or directly representing a particular or handful of factions of aliens, and whether their intentions are good or not is hard to say. I do believe he's advocating on behalf of a particular, again, faction, group, species, whatever you want to call it.
Well, that's actually my issue with him, is that I think if...
Sorry, I don't know, for the record, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. That's just what I think, yeah.
If he's done the research, which I totally believe him capable to do, he would know that these entities, again, there's only two hard truths that I'm willing to put firm. Information exists non-physically, and it can lie to you. And that's a big number two. Yeah. He seems to be ignoring in his
Greer is of the mind that abductions are not real, and that they're based on military interactions, which I think is a bunch of bullshit.
Do you think do you think, Lester, it could be a little bit of both? Military running.
Well, no. Okay, let me just finish thought then, because whether it's extraterrestrial, interdimensional, time travelers, or the military, which I think it's all the above, because there's certainly cases of mill lab type of abductions where the military is involved along with various entities. So and Greer feels that all these people are perfectly wonderful, and that's not the case.
That's the Hegelian dialectic.
Well, this is why Lester, I brought up a couple minutes ago my opinion that he's representing certain factions, presuming that they've reached out to him. This is the thing, right? Especially his recent documentary. I think that he was I agree with a lot of the core concepts that he's pushing. I just personally think his most recent one, he was far too black and white in terms of good versus bad.
Brandon, you wanted to jump in?
I was just going to say, in light of all the new information about Stephen Greer, we're all still collectively going to be emailing him daily pictures of elephants' penises, right? We're all still going to.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think that was the memo.
I set up a
We
bot
don't-
to just do
we
it
don't
for
have to
me.
shut
Yeah,
that
thank
down.
you.
Okay.
I have a large
Just
elephant
for
picture.
clarity.
Yes.
Bruce,
So
did you
just
want
to
to
bring
jump?
it, yeah,
Yeah,
Bruce.
I was going to say. I mean, obviously, this harks back as well to the divide between the sort of the Tom DeLonge, TTSA,
Right.
Stephen Greer divide, where obviously they were, I guess, on friendly terms at one point, but obviously Greer has become representing this kind of the good ETs and that everything's good and that anything bad is the humans doing it, whereas we have on the flip side kind of the Tom DeLonge position that there's this really evil aspect to much of the phenomena that and you can destroy UFOs with love because they are so negative and loads of stuff like so we have that. What I would say is a really simplistic take on both sides that that the phenomenon is much more complicated and we're not going to be able to just divide it so easily into the goods on one side, the bad on the other. So, whereas in reality it seems, and again we can't even tell which ones of these things are shamanic phenomena and which ones are physical because the same things are appearing in both, the same greys, the same reptilians.
Motifs.
So we can't even really separate them in between consciousness and physical. And then on top of that, you've got this, I think Les pointed out earlier, you've got, sometimes reptilians are friendly to people. Sometimes mantises are, and other times they're horrendous to people. So that you can't even divide them by their species.
Right.
And then on top of that, you've got the fact that all of the phenomena is trickster stuff, right? They can all lie to you. All of them can trick you. All of them can say the landing is next Tuesday. Let your friends know. And everyone knows they go to the hill and there is no landing and your life is ruined, right? There's all different parties have been involved in that kind of phenomena. And so I just don't think we have these simplistic positions that these people are arguing. They're not legitimate.
But do you think that the trickster element to this is just a part of the artifact of the Matrix here, part of the system? That
I think it's to grow us. I think it's just to grow up and understand that there isn't going to be a simplistic thing where they're just going to not trust no one. They're telling us what the Mulder would tell you, trust no one. That you build up your own confidence in yourself with this phenomena and to know how to sieve out what you think feels right and to pull it apart. Don't go along just because it's a higher being and it knows best. That you will be screwed over by the universe you do. And that's what they're teaching us, I think, is that, all of them in some way teaching you that, grow up.
It's the exact point I was making. Is this part of calibrating your compass? It's part of knowing that there's nothing out there going to save you and that it's up to you and yourself. And discernment is what this phenomenon actually teaches us more than everything. Yeah.
I think the core to take away from that is that, and again, this is a little bit extrapolation from my 2 points. I can't say for sure, but it seems like they have agendas of their own. They have their own things going because they are of giving. They are capable of.
There you are.
They are able to give true information. They are able to. There are these instances. If there weren't, there wouldn't be the field of the paranormal. We would just dismiss the entire thing as just crazy. Voices in your head. Take a pill. Get rid of it. But we know that there's these odd ones out where the case is. This voice is legit for some reason. And oftentimes, it's only for a little while. They rope you in, which is what I think has happened to Greer. I think he's been roped in. He's been given some legit things. And now he's made these bold promises, and he probably has to pay people to drop flares.
Well, because they all feed on like loosh or energy. I've heard this a lot. This term that we're the actual ones that we're the actual powerful ones here, and the archons or whatever lizard type people are running this place, the ones that stand up in suits behind podiums and tell you how to live your life. Whenever you think about things like this, I had Matt Landman on the show, Frankenstein's director, and he was saying that he doesn't put himself in the shoes of a human being whenever he's trying to empathize or trying to put his mind in what these things are doing. And this is a great observation. There's these thoughts of this archon soul trap type thing. And before anybody dismisses those kind of things, again, this goes back to what you think reality is capable of being for you to really kind of wrap your mind around these things. And maybe the fact that religions are created in this either or dichotomy and this fear-based system and this trap of your soul and coming back here, the don't go to the light, it recycles you back here. Maybe that's the trick, is to break out of this 3D reality to realize don't go to the light.
Well, it's like when you go to a picnic, walking up the hill to lay out the blanket, you don't think of any of the ants that you're stepping on the way. These other things, if they're from elsewhere, they could not perceive us of like that. We could be cows to them. If you watch monkeys jump in a hole with a bucket on its head, that you're like, LOL, that's funny. Those monkeys are dumb. But to those monkeys, that was the best attempt at scuba diving in monkey kind. You know, so like aliens observing us blow shit up is like what
I think that's a really important point is that if the source of this information is, you know, a physical being like a giant mantis in a UFO somewhere off of Jupiter, and it's sending this information to us psychically, but it's real as you and me, then that's definitely something. What we should be afraid of that. Why is it lying to us so much? Why is it manipulating people? Why, if that is the truth, if these are just bits of information that exist somehow and we're tapping into them in some unknown form, that's one thing. Maybe it's information from a different timeline, the speculation goes on forever. If these are actual beings using psychic impulses to manipulate us, that's what they're doing. They're manipulating us. It's definitely it's pretty impossible to spin that any way other than they're here to take something.
Well, look, I mean, well, look, if you think back, I mean, what I said earlier about the network of the plants, and that, you know, we seem to be in a destabilized state. We should have something quite similar to that, and we see it. The plants show us it, like allies. You know, they say, "Look, hey, you guys are meant to be networked like we are. Look, we can show you a slice of what it's like when you take us." But it suggests to me that if there is something here parasitical, that when it arrived, it destabilized our network, and it's kept us destabilized, because our best defense against it is that cohesion. That if we have that cohesion, that parasite loses whatever it is it's getting from us, because if we are all linked, it couldn't just hide away. It couldn't have a little group of people that it hides with, like, you know, a world controller elite or whatever. You know, it wouldn't, because we would all sense where the parasite, the Wendigo was, you know, in who. And I think that's why, if you look, the forces of that kind of the problems we have now, they're all to destabilize and fracture and keep us separate, because if we ever undo that, I think it would lose immediately. It has to keep us in that state. Otherwise, the cohesion returns and we would throw it off like nothing.
You know, and we can argue this energetic parasite has selected a handful of individuals over the course of X amount of time to carry out this.
Again,
they
are its host. They're its primary hosts. The others are the food. So in the same way as it looks like the ant that walks into the ant nest, you know, that looks like the other ants, and it destroys the hive.
I think it's important to be cautious of that parasite label, because again, even in what I previously said, I'm painting it malicious, and again, we're putting our human lens on it. If when a toddler stops to play with an anthill, he's playing. Yeah, he kills a couple 100,000 ants if he pisses on it, but whatever, he's playing. You know, it's not necessarily a malicious.
Right, it's unknowing.
Right,
but then eating's it's not malicious to eat either, is it though? I mean, we don't begrudge the lion to eat the antelope, but the antelope doesn't like it. Like one of my friends says, you know, what's normal for the spider definitely isn't normal for the fly. But all these things are natural things, right? So we can't say it's evil to want to say feed on some energy that you need, right? We can't try the evil. I think that's, again, the complexities of these topics. And it doesn't mean that all the things visiting us are evil. That they can be a parasite. They can be angels. There can be these friendly aliens. You know, all of those things can be real at once.
But the dichotomy is what's necessary here to experience all that. So I completely agree. So the evil things, or the evil looking things here, if we're all one, again, if you consider that the umbrella in which we're viewing for this analogy, if we're all one experiencing itself subjectively, then the evil or the shittier parts of us are parts of us still, but they're necessary parts of us, because you got to know dark to know light, you got to know hot to know cold. We live in this dichotomy type of a universe to where these things must manifest and express themselves to where you can figure out where you lie on the spectrum in comparison to the others. That's why there's no such thing as judgment or good, bad, evil, whatever. It's just about what serves you and what doesn't serve you.
If not, you wouldn't know how to define it.
Yeah, it's contrast.
You got to have the relative aspect and the relative perception of it, right? So the other way that I've heard this explained, I had a guy named Pat Mahan on from the Like Attracts Like podcast. I want to give him a plug because he's phenomenal. He came on and we were talking about this exact concept of white hats, black hats, good, bad, all those things, which, just like Chaz said, we're in the puzzle. So it's very hard to take ourselves out of it. But when you can shoot out objectively as still being in the puzzle you can fathom, then what you realize is that using the analogy that Pat did of a play, that the good guy and the bad guy, the hero and the villain of this story that you just watched come out and they bow together at the end. Both are necessary for the experience to occur in the way that it must. And so this happens though on a micro and a macro level for us as well. You have to have these lizard fucks running around so that you can figure out what's going on. And I think that what's happening with this spiritual awakening, call it whatever you want, but I think more people are coming into higher consciousness than ever. And I think that it was part of the other side of us really ramping things up and throwing fuel on the fire with this whole whatever the hell you want to think has been happening for the past 18 months. It's kind of like a kick in the ass for us to get off of our asses. You know, it seems like the distraction tools of the Real Housewives of whatever worked a little bit too well. And we were just kind of wasting away. And this opportunity came for us all to collectively go through this. And so the lizard fucks ramp it up and they're like, all right, it's the climax. Let's do this. We're ready to do this. And that may be one thing to explain this. Now, I just wanted to close on this, guys, and I've actually got to go. I've got an interview. But to the parasitic and that type of an idea, psilocybin cubensis. How many of you have ever heard the theory that it's an entity that came here as hijacked our consciousness, but it's the anti-answer to the evil shit that's trying to divide us, or what Don Miguel
I've
referred
heard
to
this.
as domestication? Yes.
Yeah.
And so, because whenever you take mushrooms, what do? You want to take care of the environment, which they grow in and thrive in.
all
You want to
positive.
tell everybody
Go
about
within.
it. You see how connected we are. The data input is insane, so you're better suited for this environment. It's like this beautiful interconnected way that's available to us if we want to look at it, to kind of enhance this reality a little bit and to kind of act like an aid, like a cheat code, you know, for this matrix to kind of figure things out in a less dire degree, you know, to see that we're all a little one. You know?
I've got to leave, guys, myself. I want to thank all of you. This has been absolutely stimulating. Andy, thank you so much for having me on here with you guys. And I would like to hook up with each one of you individually at some point. We can have some more interesting chats.
I'd love to have
That's
you
the
on.
best part
Lester.
about doing these things.
Yeah, let me-
Absolutely.
I'll go ahead and say this too, Andy. Give my email out to anybody who wants it. You guys just go for it. Please contact me.
Yeah, if we
Lester,
could
I'd love to have
exchange
you on the show. Yeah.
If we could
That's the whole point.
exchange emails, that would be fantastic, guys. And
Yes, definitely.
here's the book that I just published. It's called The Unknown Other, The Existential Proposition of Alien Contact.
Lester,
Dude, come on the
thank you
show and talk about it. We'll do that.
All right.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I'll be
Dope
having
title.
these. Yeah, I definitely want to be doing this more with individually with all of you too. Lester, Brandon, thank you guys so much for coming on. And actually, guys, I'm probably going to wrap this up anyway.
Sure. I just wanted
So-
to say super quickly, the live
Sure.
stream chat on our end is a buzz. They love it.
Oh, yes. And
Yeah, no,
everybody
thank you, guys.
listening and watching, thank you so much for participating with us in this. And perhaps we'll do this again soon or something. You know?
Andy, this was
Yeah.
awesome,
Anyway.
man. Way to go, by the way.
Lovely
Andy,
part of it.
everybody, huh? For putting this
Thanks, guys.
together.
Yeah, everybody give yourself a round of
And I
applause.
also want to
This
give
was
a
great.
special shout out to all the government agencies watching.
Yes, goodness, they all showed up. It was
Thank you.
great. I appreciate it.
Come
Bruce,
for me. I
thank
know
you
it's
so much for being
easier.
here.
Come for
Thank
me.
you. No, they need to wait too. I mean, they need to listen more than anyone at the end of the day. They've got to come out of their psychosis and rejoin this mycelium network. Man.
That's
Yeah,
right.
take the mushrooms. That's what we all need, right? Just pass out
Yeah.
mushrooms to everybody. Roll up a fat donkey's leg and let's do this thing. It's just
And
move
hey,
on to the next
remember,
level.
Stropharia cubensis, right? What is it doing? It's holding the door open to what the brain already has the capacity to do. So, I mean, it's definitely us at the center of this thing. I don't know how much of the center of this thing, but a huge portion of our experience is clearly co-created by us or I don't know. It's a beautiful thing. And I really appreciate all of you being here to help me do
It was
this.
a blast, yeah.
Speaking of a beautiful thing, this was awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah.
And plug away.
Great.
Everybody.
Yeah, anyone want to plug before I cut it? Yeah, go.
Yeah, I got to
yeah.
bounce anyway. So Brandon Thomas, Expanding Reality. You can find it anywhere you can find podcasts, like on 48 different things. YouTube, the website. Just got on Rockfin, so we're doing that now. There's a really cool episode that I'm not going to put out to everybody else. So it's a premium thing. Go over to Rockfin, check it out. It's an MK Ultra secret super soldier agent chick.
Cool, yeah.
Penny LA Shepherd. She's got the craziest story. It's Prison Planet stuff. It's her brother was murdered, turned into shoes. There's all sorts of cool stuff going on there. So go check that out. Again, expandingrealitypodcast.com. Thank you again, guys, for this. Y'all are all
Thank you.
amazing. I'm huge
Take
fans
care.
of all of you
And
guys.
Bruce,
Thanks again, Brandon.
Thank you.
Bruce, could
Thanks
you
so much.
tell everyone where to find you, because there's some people in the chat
Sure.
as well
that
asking.
too,
Yeah, sure. No one's. Yeah, I mean, if they want to, they can follow me on Twitter, but they don't have to.
Oh,
love
say
your
they have
tweets,
to,
dude,
but
by the way. I love your
Daily
tweets.
News.
yeah, they can if they want the trigger
Rile me
feed.
up.
And yeah, it's an Exogenesis HH for hybrid humans. Someone actually thought it was for Heil Hitler, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" But yeah, it's
Holy crap.
Exogenesis HH.
Oh, Jesus.
There's always somebody. And also on Amazon, obviously the books are there. Don't like Amazon, so you can contact me. I can try and get you a copy, or go to a bookshop, any bookstore, not just ask for them. There's Exogenesis, Hybrid Humans. Also there's The Forgotten Exodus, which is my earlier book with a forward from Graham Hancock. Exogenesis got a forward from Eric von Daniken, so both really cool. And brucerfenton.com. I haven't got a lot on there, but they can find some basic details about me on there. Facebook, I'm still on there for now. Who knows how long for before I get chucked off Facebook and Twitter, but I'm there for now.
All right, great. Bruce, thank you so much
where
for
are you
coming
at?
in again.
Thank you.
Chaz, tell everybody as well where they can find you.
You guys can find me at Chaz of the Dead on, I think, all the social medias. Twitter and Instagram is where I'm at the most. ChazoftheDead.com. I also have a book out, Paranormal Expeditions, Hunt for the Friendship.
Right.
It's about UFOs and psychedelics. So if you like this
There it
conversation, check it out. You can hit me up. I'll send you one if you don't like Amazon as well. I get that. You can find me writing magazines, and I'm around doing podcasts and stuff. So check it out.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you guys so much. Bruce, it's always great to catch up with you too.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
And we'll catch up again soon, gentlemen. Dave Camden obviously will stick around for a little bit to figure out the ending of this. But thank you guys so much.
Thanks very much. I'll head off and speak to you again very soon.
Real
All
soon,
right,
yeah.
Chaz,
care, guys.
I'll be seeing you for the psychedelic roundtable too.
Awesome. It was a pleasure talking to you guys.
Hell yeah. Peace, Chaz. Guys, that was fucking awesome.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Deep Share Podcast. If you want to hear more, then hit that subscribe button. Follow me on all the social places. And remember, think for yourself, but don't always believe what you think. Till next time.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, vegetarian. Enough, I get the point.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone.
What do we know? What do we know? If I know what we know, then I can tell you what we know, and if someone else knows, okay? I mean...